to go down. Just as a footnote, I had an email last week, offering a television station in Muskegon for sale for $400,000. So I just wanted to pass that, and that has to be maybe that Channel 40 bill over there. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with that.
And Alan's not here, but that I was going to pass that along to him. We buy a TV. It could be
reasonably priced.
Reasonably priced, which means it probably is overpriced. But $400,000 bill.
But anyway, the $70,000 that is going to be divided between the law enforcement and fire agencies, they will get a percentage of that remaining $70,000. Again, we've developed a formula where there's a 40% base where everyone will be getting a little over $1,000, and then as a need basis, each agency will be getting an additional allotment of money, and we will continue the process through the acquisition of that merchandise through West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission on the Homeland Security Grant, and be providing those radios for our local public safety entities.
An item that I wanted to bring up to you a couple of months ago, and I did not, in the program time we had to whiz right by. Consumers Power had shut down the nuclear plant, the Cook plant, I believe it is, and then all of a sudden there was a statement after a period of time said they're back online. I think I mentioned it to you at the time they went off, but there were concerns at that time, radioactivity, etc. That's in your area of expertise. Have you got any sense of awareness of this?
Well, to start with, I think the Cook plant used to be Indiana and Michigan. I can't bring up the name of the company that owns that. I think you're referring to the Palisades plant.
Palisades is fair.
That is in Covert Township down in Van Buren County. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Consumers even sold that to another
entity.
Okay. And I don't recall that specific incident.
Okay.
It was minor in nature,
okay,
as far as that's concerned. And I think what that is an indication the strict requirements and monitoring that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission places on these facilities to make them as safe as possible.
Okay. Also, are you in any way monitoring that oil spill in Talmadge Creek, which is not Talmadge Township, by the way, related up here?
I'm very grateful that it's in Calhoun County and not Ottawa County, obviously.
I'll imagine you
the number
are.
of pipelines that we have going through Ottawa County, the same thing could happen here. There's still a lot of unknown regarding that. There's a lot of accusations as far as when did the company actually know that it occurred. It appears that the response is geared up. I know I've had contact with some of the vendors down there as far as where they can get boom and things of that nature, so I've been involved to that degree as far as providing contact people for them to acquire additional boom. But it seems like the response is going reasonably well now. It's, 1 million gallons is a lot of oil. It makes you wonder how can it be that magnitude of a spill, just between the pipelines. There's a lot of, between the valves and the pipelines, I should say, there's a lot of safeguards built in to that, but, once that pipeline is ruptured, they can shut the valves off on both sides of it.
I would think the upstream, downstream with meters readings. I
think so.
But it's we've got to have patience. Let the EPA do their investigation and determine exactly what did go wrong and the sequence of events that's happened. There's just a lot of sensitivity there. In fact, I believe there's a big town hall meeting down in Calhoun County to give all the residents an update of progress and basically what they're going to be looking at as far as the cleanup. But when oil spills go, it's a long process to be able to retrieve all of that.
I think this is a great opportunity for us to sit back and look at what our preparedness is in Ottawa County, and where they weren't aware or expecting any kind of a disaster to occur, and just like that, something that nobody gave a lot of thought to occurs. And it just is an example of you don't know what may occur here in Ottawa County and why it's so important that there is preparedness, and that there are organizations like the Emergency Management Agency and others that are continually practicing and continually growing and building their abilities, so when something like this occurs, they're prepared to respond to it.
And I think that's where Bill and his organization have worked together. And we've brought our station into flu. Remember that 2 years ago before the onset of this thing? We had about a 9 or 10 person flu panel.
But you know, this is an excellent opportunity of how the American Red Cross, the Ottawa chapter, and Ottawa County Emergency Management, how we partnership together. The Ottawa County chapter of the Red Cross is an intimate part of our local emergency operation plan as far as the various services that they offer, and I guess I would have to say the predominant service that you piggyback or network with the plan is that of sheltering. In other words, where the Red Cross has contracts with various facilities throughout the county that meet certain criteria, that they have a contract with, that in fact if we did have a major incident where we needed to establish public shelters, you know, the Red Cross is the one that we as a county turn to staff and establish and get those shelters up and running for our people.
Yeah, we currently have approximately 50 shelters that we're under contract with right now in the county. And that list is available to emergency management through what they call the National Shelter System. It's a database that's maintained nationally. And it's a great example of if something like this were to have occurred in Ottawa County, we would follow the lead of Bill's organization, Emergency Management for the county, to say we want to open up a shelter in such and such an area, and then we would identify the appropriate shelter and staff it and get it prepared and ready.
And that
just
is
as they did, by the way, down there.
I was about to say, and then they closed it because no one came in, despite all of the foul smells and headaches and everything.
It's not at all uncommon for the Red Cross to open up a shelter and for the victims or the clients, if you will, of a specific disaster to find other locations to go to. Family, friends. There's a lot of other opportunities for people to find other places to stay, and some of them decided to shelter in place, where they decided to stay in their own residences, even though there was the foul odor and things like that. But we always have to be prepared for people to show up and be prepared to provide them shelter when they want it and need it.
I think an interesting note with that, with the shelter down there were quite a number of people responded, but they had medical conditions as a result of the spill, as far as the inhalation, where they needed medical treatment that wasn't available at the shelter. So rightfully so, the shelter referred them to the medical facilities to get the treatment. And I haven't really followed it close enough nor tracked it as far as whether they still have that shelter open or what the activity of that shelter is. But Mike hit it right on the head, you know, and especially in this area, Gil, with the family ties and the openness of our citizens. In many instances, they are more than willing to take people in themselves rather than a community shelter on a short-term basis.
I might mention that there was a fire here in Georgetown Township not too long ago. The family was put up in a hotel. Bob Brooks reported on it. And that's a good opportunity to remind folks that you're here, you're in this community, you have presence here, and you perform, and you also need money. The lifeblood of many organizations, you have every need for those.